All right, my friends, this is Rick, and we're here to talk about Nibiru. No, not this Nibiru, this Nibiru. Runeslinger posted a video a few weeks ago on one of his YouTube channels doing a review, a three-part review of this game system. And he asked for people's opinions or visions or views or so on and so forth, experiences with the game system or what, so on and so forth. Now, occasionally, all right, more than occasionally, I have a habit of firing from the hip with certain things. And at this point, he'd come back and I said, I put a little kind of a glib comment and about having new game systems being an opportunity or window for new experiences, especially for us older players who've been around and believe we think we know everything there is to know. And then he says, well, what is the, you know, he asked me a basic question along the lines of what about this game inspired you, or et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not verbatim here because I didn't bother to write it down. I will put a link to his video or videos, and you can make your own assessments or what have you. So I thought, gee, I think I wanted to take a minute because I've never played this game. I don't have the finances to purchase games just for the fun of having them like I used to. There was a time when I would continue buying game supplements and materials for existing games that I had back in the day, in part because I enjoyed the backstory, the world itself. I enjoyed having more information about the game and having opportunities to have a growing library. But finances change and situations change, and we don't always have the luxury of just having a very thick, well-padded, nicely appointed shelving system full of stuff. Now, I'm not knocking those of you who have that opportunity. I am you to some degree. Anyway, the truth of the question is obviously the game system intrigued Runeslinger enough to not only do a video review of it, but to do an in-depth review of it of three different parts, going into the mechanics, the world setting, and so on and so forth. And he does it very well. I also envy his smooth way of addressing and talking things. I have never, and probably never will, be such a smooth talker when it comes to anything. And you know that well if you've seen any of my videos over the years. And, you know, I have excess of 500 videos or 400 videos now. So I know I've made a few. You'd think I would get better in some places than what I have. So, that said, I thought I went back and I reviewed his three videos several times. And I looked up the information on Nibiru itself and what I could find on the internet. And there's quite a bit actually out there. This is, at first glance, I thought it was something that had just come out and was something that maybe that Runeslinger was involved in the Kickstarter with, or something behind the scenes with. I'm always suspicious of you, sir. I think you have access to the industry in some ways that many of us don't. But that's just my personal opinion, and by all means, do not listen to my bombastic, moronic, what have you. So, from what I took apart, from the differences, what I was looking at, from what I know and what I'm familiar with, the AD&D, D&D, fantasy, sorcery, science fiction, Star Wars kind of stuff. And I'm looking for something that's going to be interesting in a unique way, and I use the term unique loosely because there's no true unique ways. There's just an envisioned difference of an old way, because most of these game systems are based on kernels or foundations of previous experience of other game system and other game creators and so on and so forth, and untold players. And when I refer to a player, I don't mean just the person who's sitting at the table and sitting opposite of the game master, in this case, the narrator, but the narrator too, because we are all players of this genre. We play, thus we are. Yes? Okay. So much for philosophical BS. Anyway, so I looked at one of the points was dice rolls should be measured only when true chance or true consequence is in demand. See, now if I was up to my game and a little bit more savvy, like some of you YouTube people are, I would have an image for each one of these points, and sometimes I slip on the ball. Here I am after the fact, and I'm not willing to go back and hunt all that stuff down. And it would make a better video, and who knows, maybe I might try. I don't know, but it's not to my advantage. So, dice roll should be measured only true to chance or true consequences is in demand. So this is a game system that would appeal in my eyes to a lot of you who are rules light or story based. You don't want to roll dice any more than you absolutely have to, and in some cases you choose not to roll dice at all. And I think, and I've had that expression many times in my personal opinion, that dice or some sort of chance modifier is always a good thing in a true game. We're not talking sitting around and sharing a story and creating stories from, because that's a whole different set of ball of wax. If you want to do a collaborative novel, that's what you're doing, a collaborative story. But if you want an actual chance, because in a collaborative novel, you guys are conspiring to decide the elements and the outcomes of every scenario and situation that you put the characters and non-player characters and associated player characters, etc., into and out of, in my opinion. Right? So in this case, what the game is implying that dice rolls should be used when you truly want an unknown outcome to prevail, to take the control out of the hand of the narrator, out of the hand of the players, out of the hand of the collaboration of the narrator and the players, and allow chance to decide what's going to happen in that given situation. Or when you need a really true consequence. Now there's often debated mindset about consequence and dice. And in my opinion, we're looking at the opportunity to, what I'm trying to say is to go and have the game decide for you, the person, for the narrator, for the character, or for the players, for everybody involved to decide the outcome of the situation. This removes or puts a layer of ambiguity, a layer between you and the outcome. So you're not personally responsible for something that might go horribly wrong, or you can't 100% take glory for something that goes spectacularly right. So this is when we choose to make that flip of a coin, flip of a card, a draw of a card, a roll of a dice, a push of an electronic button, whatever trips your trigger at that point, right? So my second point is the combat and mental wellness that's and their approach, the creator's approach to it in this particular game system, from what I understand from how Runeslinger presents it. And see, this is where it gives me an opportunity to look at how I present things in my own videos. In a lot of aspects, I'm just reviewing the material, the supplements, the items that are already existing in a game system. I am not trying to teach you how to play the game or how to play a game, period. I'm just sharing with you an existing material object within a given system. So when Runeslinger's talking about how this appropriates, I'm taking what he says and how he says it and interpreting it how I want to interpret it, whether it's on the fly or actually taking a moment to think about it, which I chose to take a moment or 20 to give some thought to. So combat and mental wellness. It sounds to me that the author intends for the players and narrators to determine how lethal they wish the game to be. Violence is very deadly, Runeslinger says. To me, this sounds like Nibiru has a different take on the subject of combat, and or that perhaps combat should take place as a memory and not as an experience. Now, isn't that to use the term loosely, unique perspective of a game? What we're talking about is a game system that actually condones forward and backward motion in a person's development. So a person can have a dream of an event that may take place in the future and work through it and apply it to their character's experiences without actually participating in that event because it's a dream. Or when they get to the point where that event may recur in the future, it becomes a memory, which aids them in their ability to better understand how to cope with that event because they've already played through it, win or lose. So if they have a dream and they die, but their character doesn't actually die because they died in a dream, so leap forward a week or two of gameplay and we come to that exact scenario again, except now it's real. The player has the option or the opportunity to reflect on the memory and pursue it. Now, the other portion of this is the whole big portion of the game. The characters are different and standouts from their society. They are unique in their own right. And once again, using the term loosely. And so what their goal is to recapture a bunch of these memories that were been removed from them. They've either been blocked, they've either blocked them, they've either had them stolen, or they've lost them. The circumstances is part of the narration, part of the game for the character and the players. So in that perspective, a lot of the actions and scenarios of what we would consider experience-based events, i.e. we go into a room, we search for a trap, we solve a puzzle, we have a combat and fight some bad guys or escape from something, and we succeed, and in the process we gain experience in the form of points or some kind of other medium that allows us to advance our character's capabilities. So in this particular game system, a lot of that revolves around the memories, and I've had a successful memory. I remember when is something that Runeslinger says is the basis for a lot of the beginnings of these, or at least that's how the author of Nibiru wishes it to be portrayed. So I remember that there was a time when I was in the middle of the woods and I was running and I was short on breath and my heart was racing and I was in such panic, and I don't understand and I don't know why. The forest is dark and it's full of danger and noise, or perceived danger and noise. And in the dark I trip and fall down a steep cliff. I remember tucking myself into a ball and protecting my head and my neck and praying that I wasn't going to crush up against something or break a limb or a bone. And I end up at the bottom upside down, and I remember feeling shaken and sore but not in pain, that I had survived the fall. So as a reward for this memory, the character develops a +1 bonus towards falls. That is how my interpretation of how Runeslinger portrays it in this game and how this would work, right? So, excuse me, take it as you will. It's just like it's suggested that combat in this particular game is extremely dangerous, potentially lethal, very lethal. So, I'll go to my third point. The main object of the game appears to be an exploration of self, of lost memories. So what we have here is a different type of advancement for character development than our standard normal game systems and role-playing games that we're familiar with, or at least the ones that I personally am familiar with. And I'm familiar with a lot of stuff. Yes, that's Battletech and MechWarrior, however you want to look at it. Here's Star Wars, and here's Middle-earth role, Burp, and so on and so forth. And I can reach down here to my right and pull up some D&D core books and other things that are sitting down here currently. So that is so different from this Nibiru system. Is definitely a different plug from what I'm usually used to. And that's not a good thing or a bad thing. Just like I feel like I'm a little too warm in here and I want to turn on a fan and to get a little air circulation because I'm a fat guy in a closed room, right? So excuse the fiddling. So this development of a character, the character is a broken collection of mismatched thoughts and memories and perceptions at the beginning of the quote game. And through the pursuit of the game, through the quote campaign or through the experience, the character is chasing down memories, remembering things, re-remembering things in a different light, perhaps, coming to the understanding that they are a broken person and that they can become better or more whole by the inclusion of more material and information. I'm going to take a pause for a second because, let's see, this particular outlet that I use did some serious upgrades a while back, and getting in and out of pause is much simpler. So I'm back, and we were discussing how memories, the main object of the game, is an exploration of self, as in of lost memories. I don't know how you refrain or retain things or remember things or quantify things in your own world. In my situation, I went back and I reviewed several of these videos, all these 3 of these videos several times, and I made some notes, in my very bad handwriting. And the notes themselves, yes, I could have simply gone back to the particular entry comment I made on Runeslinger's video and wrote basically a neater version of this. And it would have been short, fairly concise, which is unusual for me, and to whatever point I was trying or am trying to make. But it wouldn't be as in-depth as I am personally now portraying this, because part of the experience I have is, having viewed the videos, given a lot of thought to my response and the content of what Nibiru is trying to portray as a game, is Runeslinger is portraying it, and my response to it, or my memory of it. And my memories are better when I can look at these crib notes and then roll them through once again between you and me here in this format, which tends to have my stuff run into longer things. And it has this, my style is not great. I acknowledge that, but it is my style. And it's not short, which in the short attention span of the majority of the viewers out there in YouTuber land and the world in general, myself included, the shorter the video, the more likely it's going to be viewed in its entirety. But you know what? I don't care. I'm not here for that. I'm here to express my experience and my memories and share them collectively to the handful of people who may or may not view the entire length and work their way through the babbling mindset of the, in this case, the author in front of you. So, as a game, it's a unique, once again, we're using that term loosely. It is an unusual change from the standard point system or resource management system of most games for developing characters. And I thought this would be worthy of experimenting with, or at least attempting to play once or twice. Now there's a part in there when Runeslinger says that the author goes to great point of, or not great point, but the author points out that you probably want to decide the players that are going to play the game with you. And I think there's a subtle warning there that you probably want to find people who are story-minded, not mechanics or resource game minded. If they're people who get bored easily because of listening to people babble and ramble, probably not going to be for them. If they are expecting a lot of tabletop warfare, a lot of dice tossing and consequences and so on and so forth in a rappy snap quick 1, 2, 3 after another format, as a lot of role-playing games follow, this game will not be for them. So choosing your players would be probably behoove you to do so. And moving on to the next point. Memory points are spent to have a memory, often played out, with the reward being gained again, whether it's more experience, it's knowledge that allows you to open more memories, or an actual modification in it, like a +1 or something to whatever the memory is related to. In a related skill, feat, and or accession. I don't know if this game includes feats or things of this nature, because I don't recall Runeslinger going into that detail, but he also does that on purpose. He does refrain from going into the mechanics and a lot of the certain critical points in this review, because he's not trying to steal the spoilers or give you spoilers. He's not trying to steal the thunder from the creator. He wants you to go purchase the game and experience it yourself, and to learn from it yourself and find your own perspective. And I can respect that in many, many ways. So in this case, instead of having experience points where we reach a level which allows us to add modifiers and or add abilities and so on and so forth to our character's repertoire, in this case, what we're doing is gaining a form of points that we're going to use to activate a scene. So we're going to have a memory. We're going to have a moment. Now, how this plays together with other players, how you would have 3 or 4 players sharing your moment or your memory, I'm a bit puzzled on. That's one thing Runeslinger doesn't go into any kind of depth on, and I'm not sure if there's how this mechanic is supposed to be portrayed. And I don't know if this is a thing or not a thing, because for me, the fact that the players are together, I've always said that they're the heroes of their story. They're the heroes of the moment, and they are a cut above or step beside the standard regular player trope or character tropes or non-player character tropes in any given game system. So having them share your memory as your memory plays out, in part, could be the mystique or the magic that's going on here in this strange world, in this strange land. Something to consider. So my next point goes back to combat. Combat is and can be quite lethal, Runeslinger says, and final, and should be the route of last resort. So, this is not a game of hack and slash. This is not a game of min-max in the traditional sense. This is not a game where we are murder hobos on a journey of fun and slaughter and gain and fame or infamy. This is a game of exploration of self, of recreating missing portions of a broken person and renewing or growing into a new person from those experiences, shared or unshared with your fellow adventurers. It is an adventure of self and of mind and of the unknown. So, combat can and is quite lethal and final. I.e., if you die, you die. There's no mechanics. And this is how I take this. I take it that there's no magic that's going to bring you back to life. There's no magic that's going to heal you. There's no advanced technology that's going to save you if you die. I'm sure that there's advanced technology to heal you, physically speaking, but can you get access to it, and access to it in time? You know, we don't have. It doesn't imply that there's teleporters and that there's some grand conspiracy that's going to guide your characters and protect them. That they're on their own in the best and the worst situations that the game brings forward. Thus, combat is to be avoided unless it's unavoidable. That's just my opinion. That brings me to the second and my last point. Once again, combat is and gain by loot experience is not the base core of this game. That story and exploration of our surroundings and of our character selves are the main point of the game. And I think I've iterated that several times already. My last point, and I'm sure you're all applauding if any of you managed to stick it out this far. It reminds me that sci-fi, the role-playing games, and science fiction in general is a wider genre than Star Trek or Star Wars or Battlestar Galactica, etc. And what I mean by that is the genre that's considered science fiction covers a vast range of material and subject matter and memes and what have you that we tend to, many of us tend to compartmentalize. So when I think of science fiction, the first thing that comes in my mind is stuff like Star Wars and Star Trek. But as the author points out in the novel, or in the game, as Runeslinger puts it out, he brings up a number of other types of science fiction that's often disregarded by diehard Star Wars people, as an example. So the fact that science fiction in this game setting is in this vast, almost unimaginably vast space station, orbiting the ruins of something. Not Earth specifically, but how the space station got there, why it's there, what its purpose is, the greater world, the greater universe or galaxy around it, how it interacts with it. Because from my perspective, it almost sounds as if there is no vaster, wilder, wider realm of space other than what's in the station and adjacent to the station, which would be pertinent to the character. So the character is not going to go off on a venture of high fantasy in space. They're not going to race off to worlds unknown and unseen in spaceships and battle alien hordes and rescue princes and princesses from so and so and so on and blah blah blah. But that could be just my perspective. Maybe an expanded game in this particular game system encourages that or adds to it. I have no answer. I find that it was interesting how this begins, the story for the game, the backstep of 4,000 years ago in an ancient human civilization on Earth. A temple is completed and something occurs. And that's that. Anything further than that, it didn't really, Runeslinger either didn't share it or it doesn't exist. And it's there to be envisioned or remembered, created from memory. So, there you have it. Nibiru.